Ruby Elaine Dardeen was pregnant when investigators found her dead in the quiet around the Dardeen family mobile home near Ena, Illinois. There was no obvious explanation waiting at the door. There was only the aftermath of a family that had been erased in November of 1987. It is the kind of case that resists easy language because the confirmed facts are devastating enough on their own. A mother, her young son, and her newborn daughter were found dead inside the home, and the father was found separately later. Investigators believed the family had been targeted, but decades later, no suspect has been charged. No motive has been clearly established, and the case remains unsolved. That is what makes the Dardeen case so difficult to sit with. It is not only the violence, it is the absence that followed it. The absence of a charged suspect, the absence of a proven motive, the absence of a public explanation that can connect what happened in that home to any reason that has ever been confirmed. How does a case become so certain in its brutality and so uncertain in its purpose? The location matters, because this was not a hidden life. The Dardeens lived in a mobile home in a small Illinois setting near Ena. It was the kind of place where routines could be noticed, where work schedules mattered, and where a family could seem ordinary from the outside. To anyone looking in, there was little in the publicly available record to suggest that this household would become the center of a long-running homicide investigation. But the verified details are stark. Ruby Elaine Dardeen was pregnant. Her husband, Keith Dardeen, was 29. Their son, Peter, was 3. Their newborn daughter, Casey, had just been born during the attack. 4 lives, 1 family, and no answer that has ever fully explained why they were killed. To understand why this case still unsettles people, it is important to begin with the family rather than with the crime scene. According to the research brief, Keith worked as a treatment plant operator for the Rend Lake Water Conservancy District. In 1986, after completing training for that job, Keith and Elaine purchased a mobile home in Ena. It was a practical step for a young family trying to build a future. By 1987, Elaine was pregnant with their second child. The couple had talked about names, planning to call the baby Ian or Casey, depending on the gender. Those small details matter. They are not dramatic, and that is exactly why they are important. They point to ordinary expectations: work, home, parenthood, and the next stage of family life. The verified record does not provide an easy explanation for why that life ended the way it did. There is no confirmed evidence in the provided material of a family dispute that explains the crime. There is no established financial motive in the brief. There is no documented feud presented here that can turn the case into a familiar story with a clear beginning and end. That lack of a known motive is not a minor detail. It is one of the central reasons the Dardeen murders remain so haunting. The timeline begins before the violence, with those ordinary decisions: the move to the mobile home in 1986, the growing family, and Elaine's pregnancy in 1987. Nothing in the verified record provided here suggests public warning signs that would explain what was coming. Then came November 18th, 1987. Keith did not report to work. His supervisor contacted Keith's parents, and that concern led to a welfare check at the Dardeen home. A welfare check is usually built around the hope that something has been misunderstood: a missed shift, a car problem, a sudden illness, a family emergency that can still be explained. But at the Dardeen home, authorities found something far worse: Inside the mobile home, Elaine, Peter, and newborn Casey were discovered deceased. The case immediately moved beyond a missing person concern. It became a homicide investigation involving nearly an entire family. And from the beginning, the facts raised more questions than they answered. Elaine had been pregnant, and during the attack, she gave birth. The newborn was also killed. These details are deeply painful, and they do not need embellishment. They are part of the public record because they explain why investigators and the public have never been able to set this case aside. What happened next only widened the mystery. On November 19, 1987, Keith Dardeen was found separately in a field near the family home, near Rend Lake College, according to the brief. He had been shot 3 times and mutilated. His car was later found parked in Benton, Illinois, near the police station. Those facts establish movement and separation, but they do not explain the sequence. Keith was not found with Elaine, Peter, and Casey. The car was not found at the home. The full chain of events between Keith's missing work, the welfare check, the discovery inside the mobile home, and the discovery of Keith's body has never been publicly resolved in a way that closes the case. That separation remains one of the most difficult parts of the timeline. Why was Keith found somewhere else? Why was the car left in a different town? What happened in the missing hours before anyone understood the scale of the violence? These questions are not proof of any particular theory. They are simply the questions left behind by confirmed facts that still do not explain themselves. When investigators moved from the timeline to the evidence, the case did not become clearer. The official record did not produce a clean motive, a single clear suspect, or a simple sequence that made sense of the attack. According to investigators, the family was believed to have been targeted. But that belief, even if strongly held, did not produce charges. This distinction is critical. A case can look intentional without becoming legally solved. Investigators can believe a family was singled out while still lacking the evidence needed to name, charge, and prove responsibility against a suspect. That is the gap where the Dardeen investigation has remained for decades. Authorities pursued the case through local and state channels, and the investigation was extensive. But no viable lead resulted in charges. There were suspicions. There were theories. There was a continuing belief that the violence had a specific target. Yet the available record does not show a solved motive, a charged suspect, or a final explanation that connects the known facts to a proven reason. If this was targeted, what evidence failed to reveal who targeted them and why? In January of 1988, the case entered one of its early formal stages. From January 12th to January 14th, a coroner's inquest was held for Keith Dardeen. The jury returned a verdict of homicide. That finding confirmed that Keith's death was being treated as a killing, not an accident or an unexplained disappearance. But a homicide verdict is not the same as a solved case. It does not identify the person responsible. It does not explain why Keith was found apart from the rest of his family. It does not answer why Elaine, Peter, and Casey were killed inside the home. By November 18, 1988, 1 year after the murders, the case was still unsolved, and a $30,000 reward remained in place. That detail shows how quickly an urgent investigation can become prolonged uncertainty. A reward can keep attention on a case. It can encourage tips. It can signal that investigators still need help from the public. But in the Dardeen case, Even that incentive did not produce the breakthrough that would close the file. Years later, the murders reached a national audience. In 1998, America's Most Wanted aired a segment on the Dardeen case. According to the brief, no new leads were generated. That is another painful turn in the history of this investigation. The story was broadcast widely, but the exposure did not bring forward the information needed to identify and charge the person or people responsible. Once again, the case returned to the same unresolved place: a known tragedy, a continuing investigation, and no confirmed motive. Then came a later development that seemed, at least briefly, to offer a possible answer. In the 2000s, serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells confessed to the Dardeen murders. But this claim must be handled carefully. A confession is not automatically proof, especially in a cold case, where investigators must determine whether the person claiming responsibility has information that could only come from the offender or from reliable case knowledge. The brief is clear that authorities were skeptical of Sells's confession. That skepticism was tied to his history of false confessions, which gave investigators reason to question whether his statement was reliable. This is where legal caution is essential. Tommy Lynn Sells was never formally charged in connection with the Dardeen murders. His claim did not legally solve the case. It did not produce a conviction for these killings. It did not change the official status of the investigation into a closed and proven matter. He was executed in Texas on April 3, 2014, but that did not resolve the Dardeen case in Illinois. The confession remained a claim, and without a public record showing charges or corroboration sufficient to close the case, it cannot be treated as a final answer. That leaves the case in a difficult position. If Sells's confession was unreliable, then investigators were still facing the same unknown offender, or offenders they had been looking for since 1987. If any part of his claim seemed possible, the public record provided here still does not show that it became enough to charge him. Either way, the result was the same: no suspect charged, no proven motive, and no final judicial answer for the Dardeen family. The Dardeen murders remain one of those cases where the confirmed facts are clear, but the meaning behind them is not. We know the family was killed in November of 1987 near Ena, Illinois. We know Elaine was pregnant and gave birth during the attack, and that the newborn was also killed. We know Peter was found inside the home. We know Keith was found separately, and that his car was later located in Benton. We know investigators treated the case as a targeted attack. We also know that despite extensive investigations, no suspect has been charged, and the case remains unsolved. What the public record does not fully explain is why. It does not explain why this family was chosen. It does not explain the complete sequence of events. It does not explain why Keith was separated from the others. It does not explain why a case with such devastating facts has never produced charges. Those unanswered questions should not be mistaken for proof of any theory. They are not evidence against a specific person. They are the boundaries of what is known. And so the mobile home near Ena remains fixed in the story, not as a place of explanation, but as the place where explanation failed. It was a family home in a small Illinois community, connected to work, parenthood, and ordinary plans for the future. After November of 1987, it became the center of a case defined by loss and uncertainty. Decades later, the most disturbing part may not be only what happened, but the fact that no one has been able to publicly and legally answer why it happened. In the end, The Dardeen case remains what the record says it is: an unsolved family homicide with no charged suspect, a questioned later confession, and a motive still unknown. 4 lives were taken. A family was erased, and the silence around the reason has lasted for decades. Follow Whispered Cases for a new case every week. Subscribe so you never miss one.